Only in Kentucky could one county be home to a theme park featuring a replica of Noah's Ark, and ironically, a city that was once known as the mineral water capital of the world. Hi, I'm Michael, and I'm learning a little bit more about Kentucky, one county at a time, all 120 of them. And today, I'm talking about Grant County. If you haven't already, I hope that you check out the other counties I've covered. They're all listed in the playlist on my profile. If I haven't covered yours yet, I'll get to it soon, I promise. I'm going in mostly alphabetical order, and if you see that I skipped one, it probably means that I'm just saving it for the end because it'll need multiple parts. And as always, if I do miss something, feel free to correct me in the comments so we can all learn together. It's mispronunciations, things that I'm flat out wrong about, things that you think deserve a mention. Anyway, Grant County was officially formed in 1820. It was carved out of land taken from Pendleton County and named after Colonel John Grant. Grant was a pioneer who led a party of settlers in 1779 to establish a place called Grant Station, which we've talked about before in the Bourbon County episode. The county seat is Williamstown, which sits almost exactly in the center of Grant County. The geography here is defined by a very specific land feature called the Dry Ridge. It's a high, narrow plateau that runs through the heart of the county. In the early days before paved roads, the surrounding valleys were often swampy or flooded. So travelers learned that if they stayed on the ridge, their wagons wouldn't get stuck. That natural path eventually became the route for US 25 and later I-75. Williamstown was founded in June of 1820 by Captain William Arnold. He was a Revolutionary War veteran who settled in 1795, and when the county was formed, he donated 2.5 acres of his own land to establish the public buildings. Interestingly enough, the town was almost called Philadelphia, but since Kentucky already had a Philadelphia, they settled on Williamstown to honor the captain. But Grant County's early years were defined by a brutal struggle for the land itself. If you head west of Crittenden, near Bullock Pen Creek, you're standing near the site of one of the last recorded Indian massacres in the Commonwealth. This happened around 1805. At the time, there were two families, the McClures and the Kennedys. They lived up on the hills above the creek, and then the Brand family lived in a small cabin down in the valley. A party of Shawnee warriors descended on the Brand cabin in the valley. The entire family was tomahawked and scalped before the cabin was burned to the ground. The mother, Frankie Brand, however, survived. She pretended to be dead for over an hour lying in a pool of her own blood until the raiding party crossed back over the Ohio River. Despite being scalped and severely wounded, she managed to crawl through the dark, up the steep hills all the way to the neighbor's house above. She eventually recovered, but for the rest of her life, she remained bold and understandably wore a lace cap to cover the scars. As the county grew, it became a vital stop for travelers. South of the community of Sherman, the Sherman Tavern was built around 1840. Sitting on the Lexington-Covington Road, one of the first paved roads in Kentucky, it was enjoyed as a roadside tavern. The museum is still open today. But if you head over to the community of Folsom, you'll find a place with a much darker reputation, the Ford Stone House. It was built by John Ford, whose family moved here from Virginia and became major players in the local milling industry. The house is unfortunately famous for what happened to John's son, Elijah Ford. In the summer of 1856, Elijah was encountered on the property at a location remote from the main house. He was murdered in a sudden, violent confrontation, and suspicion immediately fell on an enslaved man named Work Ford. Work was convicted in a trial that local historians describe as rapid, and was sentenced to death by legal hanging in Williamstown. He is one of only 2 men ever recorded as being legally hanged in Grant County history. The Civil War brought more blood to Williamstown in 1864. 3 Confederate prisoners were brought here from a prison in Lexington and shot to death in a reprisal execution, retaliation for the murder of 2 Union sympathizers. Later that year, a Confederate force of 32 men under Colonel R.J. Breckinridge, Jr. raided the city looking for a stash of Union money. They didn't find any of the cash, so they just plundered a local store and stole about 30 Union muskets. By the turn of the century, Grant County found a way to turn its geology into a figurative gold mine. In 1909, in the town of Dry Ridge, a company was drilling for water and struck a deep pocket of mineral water. Dry Ridge rebranded itself as the mineral water capital. They opened up the Carlsbad Hotel in 1911, and people traveled from all over the eastern U.S. to take in the waters, as they did at the time, for their supposed healing properties. The hotel eventually burned down not long after in 1927, but the brand was so strong that they bottled the water well into the 1960s. Just a few years after the hotel burned, the county made national headlines again, but in a different way. In 1930, the tiny high school in Corinth, a town that barely has 200 people today, went on an impossible run to win the Kentucky State Basketball Championship, then went on to win a national title. In a state that treats basketball like a religion, the 1930 Corinth Miracle team, pretty legendary. But the history isn't all on the ground. If you talk to people who were around Williamstown Lake in the summer of 1975, the conversation usually turns to the sky, because then Grant County became the epicenter of a massive UFO encounter. Multiple residents across the county started reporting metallic-looking objects hovering silently over the water before accelerating at impossible speeds. One witness described a craft with blinking colored lights passing overhead around 8 p.m. that night, while others reported silence and then sudden acceleration. To this day, the 1975 sightings remain one of the most famous unexplained events in Kentucky history. Today, Grant County is a hub for tourism. The Ark Encounter in Williamstown, which opened in 2016, is a 510-foot-long wooden ark, the largest timber frame structure in the United States. It's a full-scale recreation of the biblical vessel and has completely transformed the local economy, bringing millions of visitors to a town that used to be a quiet ridgetop stop. If you're looking for other types of recreation, you've got Williamstown Lake for boating, Bolts Lake and Bullock Pen Lake for some fishing, and the Lloyd Wildlife Area in Crittenden, which offers about 1,100 acres of land for hunting and wildlife observation. Every year, people flock to the Marigold Day Parade and Festival in Williamstown. In Dry Ridge, you can visit Piddle Park, or head to Crittenden's Grant County Park, which features one of the premier disc golf courses in northern Kentucky. And Dry Ridge hosts the Party in the Park, with massive fireworks over the lake. And you know that Grant County has some major names attached to it. Arnie Rison, an NBA Hall of Famer, grew up here. So did country pop legend Skeeter Davis, whose hit The End of the World made her star. Even the current CEO of Kroger, Rodney McMullen, is a Grant County native. Today, Grant County is home to about 25,000 people. So, that's Grant County. What did I get wrong this time?